Now let's go and take a look at the having clause. The having clause is similar to the where clause, except that the where clause applies filtering from the select statement directly against the I/O activity, thus reducing I/O activity. The having clause, on the contrary, will filter the results of a group by clause, so it will not reduce the amount of I/O. Be careful you don't mix up the functionality of where and having, such as trying to apply a where clause filter in a having condition, because you're still going to read all the data underneath and you could wind up with a really large query. Select from where having condition, and you can apply conjunctions to apply multiple having conditions using logical operators. Now let's look at some examples of the having clause. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to join the venue and the artist table just to set you up with the data that I'm using. And here we have venues and artists. Obviously a sports event doesn't look like an artist, but so we could go down to, say here, Chicago, Styx, they're artists, they're bands, it's music. And now let's group by venue and count all the artists for each venue. So run this one. And now we can see that for Compaq Center we've got 20 artists. That is artists doing shows at these venues. So 20 shows, if you like. Probably should be shows rather than artists, but it's close enough. And now I'm going to apply a filter using the having clause, which is incorrect. And I'll explain it just now. But what I'm actually doing is I'm running all the data, getting it, reading all the rows and all the tables, joining it all together, grouping it, summarizing it, and then taking out the ones that I want and I don't want. I'm doing the same here, except that I'm actually restricting the count. So I only want to find artists that have 10 shows or more. So I'm going to find this one. I'm going to ignore this one. I'm going to find this. Actually, no, I'm not going to find that because it's 10, not greater than 10. These ones I'm going to find. So run this query. And as you can see, we've restricted the group. The problem here, what I've done, and I've written it out, it's a common mistake with the having clause, is to use it in place of a where clause. Having clause filters the group rows, and a where clause filters rows as they are read. It's not really a problem in this database because I don't have much data, but if you have a terabyte database or a database that's multiple terabytes or even hundreds of gigabytes, you do a query like this and you want to find two groups out of 5,000, you could read terabytes of data to find not even a few meg of data. You could run a query that actually runs all day and halts your database and shuts everything else down because you're too busy doing something you don't need to do. What you should do is put this into the where clause, because it is a where clause filter, and this count a name is the thing that summarizes. This is the having clause. This is the correct way to do this particular query. It gives you the same result, but it's much more efficient. And I've made a few changes here, so I'm going to copy them back into the text file for this particular movie. Save this, and we're done with the having clause.